All right, welcome back to Always Moving Forward. Remember to, before we get started, just remember to hit that subscribe button. Like, comment, share. We'd like to hear from you and what you think about what's going on with the show. And we're actually, really excited about a lot of the new things that we have coming up. We have a ton of great interviews coming up, and so we don't want you to miss that. So subscribe, hit that notification button, and like what if you like what you see, hit that like button. So, all right. So today I have Tiffany Coleman.
I'm good.
How you
How are
doing,
you?
Tiffany?
Thank you for having me.
I'm doing great. So, you're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. I'm really excited about talking to you today. So, and hearing your journey. So I met Tiffany on Facebook. One of my links actually suggested, that I contact you and get you on the show. So she sent me your Facebook page, and I looked it up, and I was pretty excited about hearing your story. I saw a news broadcast that kind of had some information about you. So, anyways, with that being said, go ahead. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and just let us know where you come from, and where you grew up, and
I
we'll just
grew
go
up
from there.
in Mississippi, of course. You'll catch the accent after a while, but no. Oh, the deep South, Jackson, Mississippi. I'm from the capital city. Yep. City with soul, from the birthplace of America's music, and so we know how to get down.
Well,
We know how to get live when it's time. But no, I'm a native of Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah, born and raised there actually, and I wouldn't trade it for any other place. I've traveled to many other places, and I'll be honest, I feel great when I go to other places and meet new people and different cultures and all of that. But there's something about Mississippi, there's something about Jackson that there's just this attachment there, this connection there that really fills your heart, and
right.
and you just feel like you're at home. It's a place where people are down to earth, and it's just homegrown type type of environment, and a lot of hospitality. A lot of hospitality. A lot of things going on now that pretty soon we need to be speaking out on, as far as crime and violence and things of that nature. However, I know the focus here now is
Right.
my musical career and acting, and my authorship and things of that nature. So, but when I was 7 years old, I had an assignment from one of my teachers, and she asked
Right.
us to create a book of our own. And so it was just
Wow.
something we did on like construction paper, something really basic. And
Right.
I created this riddle book, right? And I was telling little riddles and jokes and stuff like that
Wow.
in it.
Okay.
And I illustrated it. I drew my own pictures and all of that. And she had this really nice ribbon
Right.
paper or ribbon like material that could go on the outside of the book. And she had these little binders,
Right.
that you could attach to it, like punch holes in it, and then stick the binders in that would clip everything together and make it look really cute and neat.
Right.
And I think it was at that moment
Right.
that I had the desire to write, and I wanted to become a children's author, a
Wow.
children's book author. And so that's a seed that was
Oh, wow.
planted through that classroom assignment way back, then when I was in the first grade. And about 4 years after that, I was 11.
Wow.
A cousin and I, one hot summer in the 90s, decided that we were going to write an R&B slash rap, song. And she was singing, and I was singing a little bit on there too.
Right.
But I had a verse on there that I wrote, that I've written, because I would write poetry often. And so I figured like, hey, well, I can rap my poetry too.
Right.
And so when I realized that it actually sounded good, I think we had a hit song back then, and we just
Right.
we were young, we were kids, and we were just doing what children do, just making up stuff and acting and performing,
Right.
being around the house and all of that. training and rehearsing for where I am now, obviously. But flash forward about 7 years
Right.
after that, I was 18 years old. Started professionally recording in the studio. At that time, I was a secular rapper. My lyrics and my message was totally different from
Right.
what it is now. And I was in a really bad car
Right.
accident about 2 years after that. And I was with my rap group, actually, some members of the group that I was rapping with. And we had a really bad car accident on Easter Sunday of 2004. I ended up in the hospital in intensive care for 3 days in a coma
Wow.
with a severe traumatic brain injury and a spinal cord injury. And I had so many internal
Wow.
injuries, and the doctors, gave this prognosis and told my mom that I'd be in a severe, and that I would be in a persistent vegetative state, and I had a severe traumatic brain injury and, spinal cord injury, and so I had a 360-degree fracture actually around my entire skull, and my brain was bleeding at the base of my
Wow.
brain, and
Wow.
I hit my head so hard that I perforated both of my eardrums in that blow, and yeah, so
Wow.
both of my
Wow.
eardrums were, burst, basically. My right jaw was fractured, my small intestines were torn, my ribs were fractured, my lungs were bruised. So much was going on, spinal and all that stuff. And so
Right.
by looking at me, probably couldn't tell, but, definitely God has healed me and restored me. And there's not a scratch on my body except for one little scratch. It looks like something I did running out on the barefoot on the streets of Mississippi. I have a little scratch on my right big toe. I consider this a consecration that came from the accident because I had on sandals that day, and so my toe got scratched, and that was the
Wow.
only scratch that I had on me, which was funny because one of the members of the rap group was actually my boyfriend at the time, and when I left home one time, my mom told him, she better not come back here with a scratch on her head. And she better not
Right.
come back here with a scratch on her. When she comes back, she better be just like how she left. That's what she told him. And I
Right.
ended up having to come back home
Wow.
and stay for quite some time. And she had a scratch on her.
And you said
She
how
looked
old
just
was
like how she left. She had a little scratch, so I found some humor in that. But I just feel like God,
Right.
there was a sign of consecration, and that I was going to have a consecrated walk after that. At the time, I wasn't thinking of all of that, but in hindsight, definitely, I knew that's what God had planned all along. I just didn't know at the time. However, when I was in the coma, I felt like I was dreaming. I would have these experiences. I don't know if you have, but I know many people who have like this sleep paralysis when I was younger. I had it a lot when I was younger and a teenager, and it's really when your body is going through REM or REM or rapid eye movement, right? And so your body basically shuts down and paralyzes itself, but you can be aware spiritually and mentally aware that you are asleep, but that you're actually awake. And so you can actually, some people can open their eyes and and do all this thing or try to call out or yell out things and no sound would come out, where your body is basically under a paralysis, in a paralysis state. However, your mind is not, right? And so I would have these encounters sometimes when I was younger, and I didn't like the feeling of that, and many people don't. It's just not a good feeling to have. And I'm in the South, right? So grandmothers and great grandmothers, they would say the witch is riding your back, or something is going on. You did something, you know what I mean? And I was a good girl, so why is the witch riding my back? So I was like, I got a trick for this. I'm gonna stop sleeping on my back, and then I'm gonna stop sleeping on my stomach. I'm gonna start sleeping on my back. So witch can't ride my back if I'm not sleeping on my stomach. Parks is like, what are we getting into right now? I didn't think I was going to hear this on this interview. But no, a lot of people experience the phenomena, and they have, so many things to share and so many stories to tell about what they experienced during these times. However, that trained me to connect with God on a level in such a way that whenever that would happen to me, I would say the Lord's Prayer, or I would pray, or I would call out, Jesus, 2 or 3 times, and that would break me out of that state. And so that
Wow.
was my way of getting out of it. Well, flash forward back to when I was in the coma and I'm dreaming and I'm praying to God and I'm saying,
Right.
Lord, I know I'm awake in here. Hey, where am I really? Because
Right.
I feel like I'm awake. And usually when I have these experiences, you wake me up out of them. I pray, I call on the name of Jesus, and you wake me up out of this experience. But I'm not waking up, and I know I'm here, but what is really going on? And at that moment, God allowed my hearing, because I had like blood and fluid from my brain coming out of my ears and my nose and everything. They had my eyes taped
Right.
down. They had my neck. I had a neck brace on. My whole body was strapped down right in this bed. All these tubes,
Wow.
wires. I was on a ventilator.
Wow.
Life support for those 3 days. And
Right.
they basically were saying I was clinically brain dead. I wasn't responding to any sound, any touch, any lights shining in my eyes. My pupils weren't dilating or anything like that. And that I declined very quickly when I made it to, I came in one way, but very quickly my state and my consciousness declined very fast after making it to the hospital. And so I'm laying
Right.
there and I'm asking God, what's going on? Why are you not waking me up? And I know I'm talking to you, and I know that
Right.
I'm aware, and that I'm awake. And He allowed me to.
Hey, Tiffany. Tiffany, I just want to ask you one question, just because I'm curious on this. When people are in a coma and you're talking about being in that paralysis state, are you still aware of like people in the room coming in, talking to you, and you just can't communicate? So were you aware of the doctors and like family coming to visit you, and what
At
was that
moments,
like?
sometimes, but a lot of times you're under so much medication and heavily sedated that a lot of times they are probably not
Right.
aware of what's going on around. But in those moments where
Okay.
you have come out of that sedation and you are aware, you can hear people. You can hear people. You're aware of what's going on. I even remember, and I watch stuff like this. I saw a documentary, and there was a young lady who had been in a coma since before
Right.
9/11, right? And she had I think a really bad accident or
Right.
something, some type of fall or something, and she, had this traumatic head injury, brain injury, and it was
Right.
like 20, 25 years before. Her family held on for a long time, 20, 25 years or so before she comes out of
Wow.
this. She's a little girl when she goes in, 11 years old or something. She comes
Right.
out as a grown lady. She's in her 30s or 40s or something like that.
Wow.
One parent has passed away, in this caregiving process. Other parent is away. And
Right.
she woke up around the time, not long after 9/11, and they used to have on the television, in the news, was playing in the room while she was
Right.
laying there in the coma, and they would just spend lots of time in there with her. And when she finally woke up,
Right.
and they had conversations, she was able to communicate, and they had conversations with her, she told them about current events and events that happened over the years.
Oh, wow.
She said, I
Wow.
remember when they knocked the towers down. And this is years after,
Wow.
I remember when they knocked down the towers.
Right,
I
right.
heard all of that. I was hearing everything. Yeah.
Wow.
So birthday celebrations that would
Right.
come in the room with her, singing, whatever the occasion may be, she
yeah.
remembered, and she
Right.
was aware. And same thing with me. I was at that moment when I asked God that. God is so good that He
Right.
allowed my hearing to open, and I was able to hear the monitors in the room.
Right.
Even though I couldn't move, my eyes were taped down, I couldn't open my eyes to see. I could hear the monitors in the room. And when I heard the
Right.
beep, 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 I was like, oh, it sounds like a hospital room. Oh, then I started remembering when I kept asking people, what happened? What happened? What happened? And I'm crying, and people are saying, you've been in an accident, and you've been in an accident. But when you've been through so much trauma, like how I was at the moment, and you've had a head blow like that, you may be able to
Right.
communicate and talk, but you're understanding nothing, and it just
Right.
wasn't sticking to
Right.
me. I remember asking so many times, what happened? What happened? What happened? And they kept saying, you've been in an accident. And it was just such a in the present moment, and I was at such a heightened level and traumatized, and my body is in shock, and all this
Right.
adrenaline is rushing, and I don't even realize what's going on around me. And yeah,
Wow.
but I recall when I hear the monitors, and I say, this sounds like a hospital room. Then I started remembering, you've been in an accident. You've been in. I hear these different voices. You've been in an accident. You've been in an accident. You've been in an accident. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just lay here and I'm gonna still pray. I'm still gonna recite my psalms. I'm gonna praise God. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna sing "Victory Is Mine" this entire time while I'm laying here, and I'm gonna give God praise until they come and get me out of this situation. Because like I said, I couldn't move. It felt like the sleep paralysis again. But it was because they had me strapped down, and the reason why they had me strapped is because they wanted me to stay completely calm. They didn't want me to open my eyes and there not be in the room at the moment, and I wake up to tubes and wires and not know where I am, and them not knowing my state of consciousness and if I'm aware or how I will receive the environment and what I see, which is why they had the eyes taped down. So if I did wake up and come out of this sedation somewhat, I wouldn't be able to move and know or see anything around me anyway. You see what I'm saying? Because that would alert a person and make your blood pressure go up. Blood pressure goes up, brain swells.
Right.
And that's what they were trying to prevent.
Right.
I think they did a pretty good job.
Wow.
So on the third day, which was 3 days after Easter Sunday, after Resurrection Sunday, my mom comes to the side of the bed, and she had been through this whole process of praying, and she come in with the oil and she anoints my head, from the crown of my head to my toes, and she brings in, these other spiritual leaders who were friends of hers and in her life at the time, and who knew me, and they would pray over me. And anybody who tried to come in the room with something negative and oh my God, or crying and stuff, she would immediately dismiss them. Apologize, but say, hey, you gotta go. Can't have that in here. She's healed. She's going to be okay. I know it looks bad, but you want to see her, fine, but she can't come in here with crying, because I don't know if she can hear, and I don't want her to get scared. I don't want her to be, and so she was more so concerned about protecting and caring and nurturing at that moment, in those moments. And 3 days after, she went to go take my brother to school. He was, I believe, maybe in, I don't know, middle school around that time or something like that. And when she made it back to the hospital, the doctors were yelling at me. So she's like, hey, what's going on in here? And so, Mother Bear pops in. She's like, what's going on? And they're like, well, we don't know if she can hear. We don't know if she can respond. And we're just trying to get a response at this point, because it's 3 days in. We think that, it's time to make a decision about this life support. She has these tubes down her throat. We think it may set up an infection. She may develop pneumonia in her lungs. And, we're just trying to gauge and measure where she is and trying to get some sort of response from her. And I wouldn't respond to them. But she comes over to the side of the bed, little small, petite woman, and just faith-filled, and puts her fingers in the middle of my right hand. And she says, Tiffany, this is your mother. She said, if you can hear me, if you can understand the words that I'm saying, the doctors want to take these tubes out of your throat. If you can hear me, squeeze my fingers. And I was able to hear her voice at that moment, and I was able to squeeze her fingers and let her know that I was still in there. And I just had just enough strength just to squeeze those two fingers, right? And so she steps back and she tells me, take her off, And because they kept telling her she's clinically brain dead for those 3 days. She just kept telling them, that's not what God said. It's not what God said. God said that she's healed. Her body has to catch up to the healing. But she's already healed. Yep. Right. Just like the centurion. And so they pull me off. They take me off. I wake up, I start breathing on my own. They unstrap me and take me off all this stuff. I never had to have surgery. I didn't have one surgery whatsoever. Everything that they thought that was going to happen didn't happen. Even, the longevity of the effects of the brain injury, they were projecting, at one point she won't be able to read, won't be able to write, won't be able to do anything on her own. You'll have to take care of her. We've seen head injuries like this. As a matter of fact, we haven't saw one quite like this, because we never saw anyone perforate both eardrums with the head blow like this. And so, I was facing all of that. And mind you, I was a straight A student in college at the time. I was a junior at Tougaloo College. had a photographic memory, and I was on
Right.
top of everything. I didn't need to make lists and write down checklists or note to-do lists, none of that stuff. A through Z, like I had it all together.
Right.
And then so now I'm faced with a brain injury. And I got to come out of this and don't know that I'm faced with this
Wow.
brain injury, right? And I think that was a part of primarily why my mother
Right.
was protecting me too. She didn't want me to hear, if I could hear, she didn't want me to hear anything negative. She didn't want me to, hear what was being said and for it to actually believe it and then come out and then be handicapped or hindered by what I heard
Right.
or even believe that for a moment that I was not healed according to the way God had wanted to heal me during that time. Now, I did have a little trouble with memory
Right.
initially, short-term memory.
Right.
I had problems with that. Had no problems with remembering stuff from childhood. They had this big collage and with pictures on it of graduations and different celebrations, birthday parties, weddings, different occasions, and pictures with me and other people and stuff like that. And so she put this all on a poster and she brought it to my bed. And she
Right.
was like, who is this in this picture? What's going on in this picture? Where were you? What year was this? Then we go to the next picture. Who is this in this picture? What was
Right.
happening right there? Where were you right there? And I would tell the whole story, from A to Z of what was going on.
Oh, wow.
After I went through
Right.
all of the pictures and didn't miss a beat, she
Right.
pulls the poster back and look at the doctor and is like, she's fine. And so, but
Right.
no, but I did after that, still even, like I said, there was this stuff from my childhood and my past, but that short-term memory, like I remember going into the store
Yeah.
and I would never have to have a list of
Right.
items. Like I knew what I was going in there for. I knew where everything was. Go in and come right back out. After the brain injury,
Right.
I would sometimes, I had to build up first enough self-confidence to get back out on the road. Been in an accident like that, first of all.
Right.
I wasn't driving, but still being in a vehicle was a little PTSD was probably setting
Right.
in at the time. A little post-traumatic stress.
Right.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
and man,
Right.
I mean, I was only 20 years old, still a young girl, and I remember having a dream one time, and I was on the outside of a car, and a dog was chasing me, but I could have gotten inside of the car for protection, maybe, but I didn't. I just continued to run around
Right.
the car from the dog because I'm afraid of a barking dog too. So what are you more afraid of?
Right.
What's more of a threat? The barking dog that you've been afraid of your entire life, or getting inside of this car that's
Right.
not moving, nothing wrong with it, and open
Right.
this car door and get inside of this car. But subconsciously, in my mind, in that dream, to get inside of the vehicle at the time was more of a threat. Because I almost lost my life
Right.
inside of a vehicle. So I would rather continuously,
Right.
until I'm tired, run around the vehicle from this dog, which is also another threat
Right.
to me, and I'm more afraid of than, because the car can't bite
Right.
me, the dog can.
Well, right. Well, with everything you went through, I mean, it's
Yeah.
completely understandable. I mean, so I want to go
Okay.
back before the accident because you said something that that you said that you were doing secular music. You were with your your rap group, headed off somewhere. So there's two questions from what you've gone through that I'm kind of curious about. So your mom, she seems like a person with a lot of faith. So did you grow up in a Christian home?
Absolutely. We weren't necessarily church every Wednesday, church every Sunday. I would say that. But
Right.
we did attend church, and I remember from the time when I was very young that my mother always would pray to me, and she would always teach me Psalms, and she would always teach me about the Passover, which is just amazing to me that this
Right.
happened to me during that time. You know what I mean? And those are things that I lean back on, and
Right.
God brought to my remembrance, those scriptures, that story, and how he delivered and how he covered the firstborn, and I am the firstborn child. I was remembering all of that stuff during that time,
Right. And it sounds like during that time too that this strengthened your mom's faith as well. I mean, you had this encounter with God. He gave you time, to be able to call on God and and have it to strengthen your relationship during that time with God. And it also sounds like for your mom, she had to do the same thing. She had to rely on God for your healing. So you guys are both kind of in the same boat, on opposite sides. Like you're in it, she's outside of it, but you guys are all, you're both having to believe the same God for the same healing.
Absolutely. I remember she told me that my grandmother, who I was very close to, she passed away in 2013. That was very close to my grandmother, and my grandmother was refused. She was not coming up to the hospital for one thing. She was not coming up there, but she was constantly checking, getting reports and stuff or whatever. She just couldn't stand to see me in that condition. Plus, she had a condition, where there's vertigo. She would get dizzy if she had, she just had this phobia with big buildings and stuff, and so she wasn't a very, big on going into places. And usually, if she had to go to those places, I would be there with her. And this time, for her to have to come without my assistance, but to come to see me in that condition, she was just like, she wasn't making that trip, but she was very much so active, in prayer and faith and hope. And I remember my mom said she challenged her. My mom, I think, came into the house or something, and my grandmother, slid to the end or the edge of the couch as soon as my mom came through the door because, it's about to make me, because she was in expectation. She didn't know what to expect, what was the news, what was the latest status, what was the latest report. And so it was very important to her, it was at the tip of her heart. Right. So she slides to the edge of the couch, and she's like, what's going on? Want to know right then and there. And my mom was like, kind of nonchalant with it.
Right.
Oh, she's fine. She's going to be fine. My grandma's like, are you sure? Like military, like on her. She was like, are you sure? And she was like, look, I hear from God.
Right.
God already told me Tiffany is healed. She's gonna be just fine. She's gonna be okay. And my grandmother looking at her, and we got those eyes, right? She's looking up at her with the eyes, and I'm sure they were pretty glossy at the moment. And she's just like, "Are you sure?" And she told her, "Yeah, I'm sure. She's gonna be fine. I promise you." She was like, "I heard from God already. We good. We were good."
Right. Wow, that's amazing. So, whenever you woke up from the coma, and you started to get your memory back, and what was that like? What was the healing process like? And then at what point did you were you able to recover from that and find your purpose?
That healing process was one of my own. And a battle that I had to go through, I would say almost alone, in my head and in my spirit, in my mind and in my spirit, because people are looking at me on the outside. She made it out of the hospital. She made it from this life-threatening, this near-death situation. She was basically clinically brain dead, but she's here with us now. And she looks fine. She's talking to us,
Right.
She's able to communicate normally. There was no speech impediment, none of that stuff. And I'm on the inside battling, like, I know I'm not the same. I'm not the same person.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not that I was worse than before, but I didn't see how much better I was at the time either. It was a tug of war for me mentally because I had to try and balance off still being the Tiffany that they knew and still getting to know this new Tiffany and this new side of me, because God literally had to rewire the way I thought about things. I had to, and I was always a proactive person, very organized, management skills great. I was still that way, except for I couldn't control what I could hold in memory at the moment. You know what I mean? And so I had to find ways to help myself to remember certain things. whether it be repetition, I had to go back to the basics. Whether it be, and I couldn't, I felt embarrassed, not almost embarrassed, but ashamed, not even ashamed a little bit, but I just couldn't let them, I felt like I was so smart then, and I didn't want people to feel like I wasn't still smart, or I wasn't still the Tiffany that they knew.
Right.
And on the inside, I'm like, gotta hold it together, gotta hold it together, gotta hold it together. And so
Right.
I would do things to overcompensate probably at times to make sure that I stayed on top of it, which to them probably looked normal. But for me, it was a layer
Right.
on top of a layer on top of a layer at some points, and sometimes. And so
Right.
it was definitely a fight for probably, at least for the first couple of months, I would say, but up into almost, I would say, a good year. And I still know that I'm a different person to this day. I feel like I'm better now, though, because, I'm able to do so much more, and it made me really lose fear. I don't really have. It's like, what can you do to me now? Like I've looked death in the face. Okay, and that's one of the greatest fears that we have, is to transition over to the other side, or to to end this life, or to end a thing and begin something new. And so now I can walk in the boldness of, hey, I can try. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm still not human. I am a woman. And so I still have some concerns in certain instances and moments, or about certain things or areas, or when certain things come up. I still have those moments, but I'm more faith-filled now, and I'm, fearless. I have less fear, and I'm more filled with faith than I believe that I was before. Before I was shy, timid, very reserved. Now, I'm bolder. I think a little bit more outspoken and stronger and empowered by what happened to me. So much so that I've now taken that gift, and God has, kind of brought me back out. So it's not secular rap, but now it's gospel rap. And I remember I was sitting in the parking lot at the Salvation Army in 2013, right after my grandmother passed. Like I said, we were very close, did a lot of stuff for her, so I had a lot of free time on my hands back then after she passed. And so I'm sitting there picking my boys up from the after school program, and I'm like, Lord, what would you have me do? I did everything the doctor said I wouldn't be able to do. I'm the first in my family to go on to get the bachelor's and the master's degree. I've done that. I'm working full time. I have my kids and doing the family life and all of that stuff. Like, what? I don't feel fulfilled. What else am I supposed to be doing? And so I hear a voice says, you're going to start back rapping. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? I thought I heard from God. Like, the devil is talking to me right now. And so then Holy Spirit continues to speak, and God continues to speak, and he's like, but this time you're going to spread the gospel. You're going to spread the message of Jesus Christ. You're going to advance the kingdom in the earth. You're going to, and he starts to tell me and pour into me these things that I'm going to do with rap, right? And I said, well, I can rap. I know I've been wanting to write and, work on films and do all types of, different things. Stuff that I had been working on when I was secular, but like I said, I just cold turkey. Dropped everything and quit everything, because after what I went through, no way was I going to put out a message like that and spew that type of energy in the atmosphere and grow old in it and have to explain to the later generations, my grandchildren and stuff about it, and then pass away and leave that as my my legacy. So I stopped altogether. But when he gave me that revelation that day, I felt the download in my spirit, and God gave me some instructions. I prayed. I asked him for his assistance. Hey, I need the right people in the right place at the right time. You calling me to this? I don't even do this no more. And now you're saying the gospel? I haven't been praying like I should. I haven't been reading my Bible like I should. I haven't even been going to church like I should. Not really. I try to disqualify myself sitting there in the car. And God is like, nah, I ain't letting you off the hook that easy. He's like, yeah, you want to do it. And then I just said, Lord, whatever you tell me to say, I'll say it. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. Wherever you tell me to go, I will go, And that's what I said. That's what I committed in my heart to God. And I went to the dollar store, and got a notebook and some fresh pens. Told my sons at the time, I have a daughter now too, I have 3 children. I told my sons at the time,
Right.
don't doodle in this book, don't sketch in it, don't draw in it, don't color, matter of fact, don't even touch it. I'm not going to touch it until God tells me so.
Right.
He's going to do something special with this
Right.
notebook. And I'm just going to sit it
Yeah.
right here and just let it be,
Right.
consecrated, special. It was
Right.
just set apart, right, from everything else in the house. You can touch everything else, but don't touch this notebook.
Right.
And about 8 weeks after that,
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So when you went through, that experience, up to where you're at now, what do you think is the biggest lesson, that you learned from that? What is the biggest takeaway from that? Because obviously God's not going to put you through something, allow you to go through something like that without coming out, you say you came out different, but there's a positive difference too, you know what I mean? On the other side of that. So what do you think that, what was the positive? What was the thing that you're like, this is the one thing I know I learned from that, that experience?
that God is a healer, but God can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask or think. That God is still God. That God is
Right.
not a man that he should lie. That every
Right.
dream and desire I had of
Right.
being on major platforms and stages and before people and using that gift, that God can still take that thing because he's
Right.
he's the gift giver. And he will still use it and use you
Right.
and turn things around for
Right.
your good, no matter what. Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And so
Right.
that's my biggest takeaway from the entire experience, is that God is still doing it. I mean, every accolade that I have now didn't
Right.
come from me being a secular rapper. Being known as Miz Tiffany did not come from
Right.
me being a secular rapper, and using my gift, to glorify things of the world or lust or, money, cars, and all that stuff or whatever. I have a way of delivering and reaching and still connecting and relating and associating certain things to grab the attention of the listener, because I know I'm kind of ministering and dealing with a younger audience. And so I need to have a certain appeal so that it would
Right.
capture them, but we're actually capturing them with the word and with scripture and with the spirit of God, that it might be planted and grow and spring up later, right? And so that's
Right.
the goal. That's my vision, and that's the greater scheme, behind things. That's the kingdom agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, what I was going to ask you is, now with the younger generation, if you're doing, with hip hop and so what advice do you give them? How do you, relate to them and on their level, and I guess to be able to relate with them, because I know the younger generation are going through things we never went through. And so when they come to you and talk to you, what advice do you give them?
Trust. Be yourself, first of all. Be you. Trust that inner
Right.
voice. That strong, that still small voice when it comes down to making certain decisions. Because I knew that I shouldn't have been in the car that day. I knew that I should have been the one who was driving if anybody was going to be driving, because I wasn't under the influence, I wasn't intoxicated. There was a still small voice that gave the warning, that gave instructions, and I didn't listen. I ignored, and even after that, even in moments where it's not a life-threatening situation, we have those moments all of the time when we're making decisions, or there's a certain thing that we want to do, or it could just be casually, going about our day, our daily lives. There are times where there's that, don't go here, go there, or nah, it might not be time to do this right now. Listen and trust that instinct, and trust in the gifts that you have. Don't discount them for anyone. Don't downplay
Right.
them, you know,
Right.
and I would say, you know, don't exalt yourself too above other people. I think that's what helps me to be able to
Right.
relate to people in different places, no matter where I go, you know, and the fact that of where I'm from or where they're
Right.
from. When we connect, it's a genuine connection, and I can count that up to being humble
Right.
and humility and not exalting myself above people because of the stages I've been on and the people I've been around and the things that I've done. No, these are still people. And your classmates in the classroom, they are people.
Right.
They have feelings. You know what I mean? We should not be,
Right.
I know they say hurt people, but we
Right.
should not be hurting other people. Like, we should be loving one another. If hurt people can hurt people, then loved people can love people. And that means learning to love yourself
Right.
and the things about you, your strong points, and even your weaknesses
Right.
and the things you can improve on. Love all of your flaws, love everything about you,
Right.
improve on that, grow in that. But in loving yourself, you know how to love others. But when you don't love yourself, you really don't know how to love others. And you may not even know how to receive love that someone else
Right.
is giving to you. And it may take some time, you know, but not to be a tree hug or anything right now, but that's what the world
Right.
needs. The world needs love.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. Right. We need more love. We need more kindness,
Yeah.
grace, mercy, compassion. You know, it's all the things that you know, we've set aside, and I think you know, that we become such a self-centered society. Especially, I think it's gotten worse, you know, since COVID, because we separate ourselves, you know, with the whole
And it
social
should have gotten
distancing,
better.
and you know,
Things should have gotten better because
Right.
look at all of the losses and the trauma that people went through
right,
and that we all have been through. I don't just
Right.
say people as if I didn't go through anything. I lost people. I lost the person who produced my entire first album, who was a middle school classmate and like a best friend to me. He passed from COVID in August of 2021.
Wow.
Crushed my little heart, you know.
right,
Crushed my little heart for real.
wow,
Because that's
Right.
where my original sound came
Right.
from. That's where my foundation came from. Everything that I'm doing now, it was built upon that body of work. I still get booked from
Right.
that one song, that first single, I Ain't Preaching to the Choir, that one video. I just left New York back in April, and it was because
Wow.
of that song and that video, which I released 6 years ago, that they saw and were like, hey,
wow,
we want you to do this song, we want you to come up, and we need you here. And so I understand how
Right.
significant he was in orchestrating and helping
Right.
to build that. And I just can only appreciate his time, his talent, his resources, and you know, and continue to pray special prayers over his children, over their destinies, and them finding their purpose, you know, and him living through them, because they are so talented as well. They can sing, they can produce. They
wow,
even one of them even sounds just like him when he sings. Yeah. So
wow,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that's the thing, is that, you know, we should have learned, you know, from that, and I think we went the opposite direction. You know, I think that right now it's, you know, and that's kind of why I started this show, is everybody's you know, become just polar opposite of everything. You know, it's like everything, you got to pick a team. What team are you going to be on? You know, for politics, religion, you know, race. It doesn't matter what it is. There's so many ways to divide us. You know, and I think that you know, that we need to come together, and you know, realize that we're all human, you know, and we all have so much in common, and that we need each other. We need each other, you know. And then, you know, again, you know, one of the things I tell people is, you know, your purpose is to serve. I don't care what capacity you hold, what platform that, you know, God's giving you to I don't want to say stage your talent, but, or, you know, to present your purpose. You know, if you're a doctor, you're a photographer, you're a writer. Our job is to serve one another, and I think we've forgotten that.
Absolutely.
As a collective, group of
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah, acts of service. That's important. What we
Right.
do in our life journey is so connected to other people and their work and their life journey. And how could we be selfish beings when the
Right.
one who gave us grace and a second chance and the ability to receive salvation, loved us so much and so hard and so easily and created us in his
Right.
image? And how could we not, be the same?
Exactly. And that's why I really like when, or I actually love having people come in and share their journeys. And share what they've gone through and how they were able to overcome some of the things that they went through, and it just brings the human spirit back, where our audience can start relating to people, not by all these boxes that we keep checking off, but get to actually sit down and know people, and hear their stories, hear their journeys, and actually be encouraged and inspired by them.
Absolutely. I love it. I like the fact that, I was on Facebook, and I think someone tagged me in your request for people to come on and share their testimonies and everything. And she's always been a great connection and connector for me. She's actually helped to help me make history in some aspect at some point, maybe about 5 years ago. So whenever she tags me in something, I'm on it. Like, yeah. And so when I checked out your platform, I
Right.
did visit the YouTube page and everything. So I'm like, yeah, I would love to sit
I
and
appreciate
chat
it.
with them and all of that and share.
All right. I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing that. So tell us, what are you working on now? Tell us some of the things that you have coming
Some of
up.
the things I have coming out, quite a few things. So not only am I a
Okay.
recording artist, I am also an actress. The little girl who wanted to become a children's author is a two-time published children's author. I published my first book in 2017,
Wow.
so it's been a while. And I have a second book with my daughter. So she's my co-author, or maybe I'm her co-author,
Oh, wow.
I would say. On the second book, we collaborated. Both of those are available on Amazon. One is entitled Hippos Downtown. It takes place in downtown Jackson, Mississippi. The other is My Dolly and Me. And it starts out with me passing a gift, a doll,
Oh,
to
wow.
my daughter, actually. And then she kind of takes
wow.
this doll with her on this
Right.
journey, throughout different places, even here in Mississippi too. So I kind of use what's around me, you know what I mean, to make
Oh, wow.
make it fun.
Right. Right.
So the books are out, music is out. I'm working on my second album. So a little supernatural miracle
Okay.
and testimony, which I often share some of these, and people are just amazed at how things manifest. When I was sitting in the parking lot that day at the Salvation Army, I actually Googled gospel rap because I didn't know that it was a genre. I had never heard of a gospel rapper before. And when I did that, the first rapper that
Right.
showed up was The Truth. The Truth. And
Okay.
so about a year or two or so after, maybe 3 years or a little bit less, I was still writing my music, had not put anything out or anything like that, still creating, still trying to find my sound and my place and everything. The Truth and Mixed Bag Entertainment had a 16-bar challenge where, a rapper could download the beat, write to the beat, and then upload a video. And in doing so, whoever won the
Right.
16-bar challenge would have the opportunity to sign with the label. And so I thought at that moment when I saw
Oh,
the
wow.
challenge, oh, it's The Truth. This is the first gospel rapper I saw. Oh, he had his record label? Oh, okay, I'm about to be the first female gospel rapper on this label. I'm about to kill this beat. They're going to sign me. And,
Right.
I'm in the midst of writing my music and I feel like it's good. You know what I mean? And I download the beat. I
Right.
get the pen and pad. And God tells me, no, I can't do the doggone challenge. And so I'm like, can't do the challenge. What's wrong? Why
Wow.
I can't do the challenge? She says no. And so years passes by. Then I finally release my music and everything. And then I start to evolve and I learn the business. And he connects me to the right people in the right place at the right time. Just like I asked him to do, and I try to
Right.
show up at these places, and whatever he tells me
Right.
to say, I say. Whatever he tells me to do, I do. And wherever he's telling me to go, I'm going. So everything that
Right.
I prayed in the discussion we had at the Salvation Army that day, and in between that time, these things were starting to roll and take place, right?
Right.
Okay, so I went to Atlanta, Georgia, to film my first video for I Ain't Preaching to the Choir. In doing that, I met a makeup artist who
Right.
had a modeling campaign going at the time, asked me to be a model for her. And I thought I could do this. I could add this to my branding and stuff or whatever. And, my mom used to dress me up all the time when I was little. She
Right.
would have me modeling and doing all these clothes and stuff because she would sketch designs and stuff, back in the day. And so anyway,
Right.
so I started modeling. I came back home to Jackson. I started working with photographers in boutiques, and I became, like a featured model. And I would be doing some commercial shoots with some of the boutiques and with some of the photographers. In doing so, one of the photographers was like, "Hey, you have some nice features. I know you're modeling. I know you're doing the music. You ever thought about acting before?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, but I always thought I would have to leave Mississippi and go to California and move to Hollywood and all this stuff." He's like, "No, no, no. I'm gonna send you some instructions. You follow
Right.
them, and let's see what happens." Send me the instructions. I followed them. I'm on the road working with my mom, right? We're traveling around in Mississippi doing our thing. And I get a call from the casting agency
Right.
for Queen Sugar. And so they want me on the set the next day.
Okay.
And so then that was my first experience, was being on the set of a major television production. And so I guess I did a good job because they called me back and wanted me back the next week. And so I literally had to, hightail it,
Wow.
round trip to New Orleans and stuff or whatever. And then not long after that, I released the video. And that is when I got the call about being on the Dr. Bobby Jones Gospel Showcase. And I had to go up to Nashville for that. They had never had a female
Right.
gospel rapper on the show before. And so I made history there in,
wow.
in doing so. And lo and behold, then I get a call from a casting agency owner in Chicago. She says, "Directors of Empire saw your photos. We would like for you to be one of Shine's baby's mamas. Can you be here in September?" And, because I was supposed to go in October, but she had called me and asked me if I could come earlier. And
Right.
so I told her yes and everything. And she's like, "Well, they want to see you without the glam stuff. They want to just see you with no makeup and none of that stuff, whatever. Send me the pictures." I was
Right.
like, "Okay." So I sent them to her. She sends an email back and says, "You're booked. You got it." And I'm like, "Okay, all right, cool." So
Wow.
stuff starts to roll. And all the time I was writing my books and getting, researching on how to self-publish and all of that stuff at the same time. And so, anyway, flash forward, I've made so much history. You see a couple of the plaques. I have some on the floor actually, and some hanging up on other areas of the wall in my house.
Yeah, I was
I've
looking
received
at that,
about
right.
30 awards. The others are on the other
Right.
side of my house, and on the fireplace, and the mantle, and the entertainment stand, and some I have not even received. Actually, I gotta get them shipped. But
Right.
and now I was the first solo female rapper to ever receive an official nomination for the Stellar Gospel Music Awards in the Rap Hip Hop CD of the Year category. That had never happened before in the 34-year
Wow.
history, and so I was glad to be able to accomplish that. And then I've had
Wow.
a couple singles to do some things on some radio stations, and of course on Digital Radio Tracker, which tracks all of the it monitors all of the music digitally on various charts and various genres and everything. And mine was of course in the gospel genre, so I was able to make some achievements there. And what's crazy is, though, now, the big news and the latest press release that's out there and in various magazines is
Right.
that somebody is the first female gospel rapper for Mixed Bag Entertainment. And so, all of that stuff about the 16 bar challenge, all of that stuff came to pass, but it wasn't me reaching out to them. They actually, after me being in the business and making my way and kind of getting my name and my face out there, they reached out to me. And, at the moment, gave me an
Wow.
offer that
Congratulations on that.
in the middle of a pandemic that I just could not refuse at the time. And plus, I feel like it was God, because you showed me the truth. I wanted to go for it at a certain time, and it was
Right.
something that I had in my heart, and this is where I wanted to be, but you made me wait, and I went through this process,
Right.
and then they came and found me after going through this process, and now I feel like I'm prepared because I know more about the business. I've been
Right.
through some things. I've been through some challenges. I've been processed in the ministry, so I know church and I know order and the protocol and all of that. But I also know the business too. More about the business.
Right.
So now I can handle this thing. Earlier I probably would not have been able to,
Right.
and things would have went left. Who knows what would have happened, but. Anyway, I get a
Right.
text saying, hey, Truth, this is Tiffany, this is Truth. Y'all gonna be flying up to St. Paul and working on this album. And so he's A&R and kind of director of my music for this next album. And I'm really excited about it. Did an awesome job. And when I tell you,
Wow.
I had the biggest 16 bar challenge of my life in going to St. Paul, because I literally completed 9
Right.
songs while I was there. Which means, like, if every song had at least 2 16-bar verses, imagine that. So I'm writing like 3 songs a day.
Right.
Now, some stuff I had before I got there, but I'm writing like 3 songs a day, rearranging, restructuring.
Right.
So that means I'm doing about, an average of 16 bars daily for 3 days, like 12 to 14 hours in
Wow.
the studio. I'm writing the one song, then I got to get up and record it. As soon as we finish recording it, oh yes, that sounds good. I don't even have time to think about it and really get into it, because they might turn on the next beat. All right, there you go. And then they're going out of the room, and I'm in there, got to do another 16 and another 16. Same process over and over and
Wow.
over again. It
Wow.
was like a freight train moving, man.
Right.
I was like, Lord, what have you done?
Wow.
Oh yeah, so
Right.
that happened. And a quick little story about, I told you I could talk, but I'm about to wrap it up. We're almost at 1 hour and 30 seconds. So the story about Empire, my mom with her faith-filled self calls me during the first season of Empire
Right.
back in 2015. And she says, there's this show on Fox,
Right.
starring Terrence Howard and Taraji Henson. I think you should watch it, and it might help you with your music career. Because at the time I was just doing music. It might help you with your music career. You might learn some
Right.
stuff about the music industry. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Because I don't watch TV a whole lot. And, I'm more of a creative. And so I kind of don't want to be
Right.
influenced by what I see on TV or hear on the radio and stuff. And plus, I was working on my music at the time. Right, so I'm just 2 years into the gospel rap,
Right.
and I'm just focused on that. And of course, at church every Wednesday and Sunday now, though. But I tell her, yeah,
Right.
okay, I'll try and catch it. Just so happened to come on when Bible study was going Wednesdays at 7, so that's where I was. So she would call me and ask me, hey, did you get a chance to watch Empire?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I didn't watch it yet. I'm gonna watch it and stuff. About 3 weeks in a row, she called me when it first came on. 3 new episodes, and I said I'm gonna binge watch. I'll watch it over
Right.
the weekend or something like that. Watched it on a Saturday, just laying in bed,
Right.
relaxing, and fell in love with the storyline. And like, okay, yeah, I like this.
Right.
So I call her on the phone. We're talking about it like soaps, and so. I have an open
Right.
vision,
Right.
and I see myself standing on the stage with Terrence and Taraji, right? And so I tell her, I said, I'm gonna be on there one day,
Right.
and she was like, oh yeah, God can do the impossible. All you have to do is have faith and believe, and He can do whatever. And I was like, no, I just had one of those visions, like I'm a prophetic dreamer and visionary, so
Right.
no, I saw myself
Right.
there. I'm gonna be there. I'll be there. And she was like, yeah.
Right.
And it's just encouraging me and supporting me along the way. And that's 2 years later, in season 4, I got the call from the owner, the agency. And the first episode I was in the episode with Exhibit.
Right.
And his character was Shine, and he was, versus another character, Hakeem. He was, that was who he was in that scene with. And so Terrence and Taraji weren't even there for that particular scene. And I'm in
Right.
Chicago filming this. And
Right.
so many other cool things that happened while I was there. But then I get a call months later to come back again. And so when I come back this time, that's when Terrence
Oh, wow.
and Taraji are standing there. We're on the stage in Club Leviticus, and
Wonderful.
just like I saw in the vision that I had 2 years prior. And that's when we're on the stage, and
Wow.
we're standing there,
Right.
and I'm engaging, before the cameras start rolling, we're talking. Terrence
Right.
come up, he greets me, talks. Jussie Smollett, who was directing that particular scene, that particular episode, excuse me. He comes up, greets me.
Right.
I mean, they was just treating me just like I was one of them, and so it made me feel very comfortable and welcomed. And I just
Right.
knew I was in the right place at the right time with the right people, just like I prayed. And so everything has been a
Right.
divine experience for me, a divine walk. Like I see the signs, I make the connections. God shows me the way. I just continue to follow Him.
And that's just got to be, just a surreal moment, to know that, God told you one day you're going to be there. And then, 2 years later, I mean, you're literally sitting on the stage. Just, so, I mean, when you first got there, what was it like? You knew that God had told you it was going to happen. And then here you are, you're sitting there. What were you thinking at that time?
Even my mind was blown because, like I said, I really loved the show. And then it was Terrence
Right.
Howard and Taraji Henson. I mean, come on now. And then I've grown to love the other actors who
Right.
were a part of it because, some of them, they were first timers, or at least there was their first major, break. And so I'd gotten used to their characters and seeing them and everything.
Right.
And to get there and to actually be there with them was an awesome experience. Like, it really was. Even, I'll tell you a story about Exhibit, the rapper Exhibit. And he used to have this show called Pimp My Ride on MTV.
Right.
And I used to always
Right.
want,
Yeah, I used to love that
I
show.
missed that show. I used to always want to be on the show. I was like,
Right.
how does he find these people to even flip their cars and
Right.
get these rims and repaint and give them the brand new plush inside and all that stuff? Like, I wish I could be on the show with him one day.
I could use it right now.
Yeah, I was
Right.
like, I wish I could be on the show with him one day. And then I end up, being one of his baby's mamas on the show. And not only that, before we started
Wow.
filming, he calls his wife in real life on the phone. It's like, hey, I'm standing here with one of my baby mamas here. Talk to her right now. And I'm getting the phone like,
Wow.
well, hello. She's laughing, I'm
Wow.
laughing. I passed her. I was like, she's
Right.
like, hey, how you doing? I'm good. How you doing? I give the phone back to him. And that infectious laugh that he has, that,
Right, right.
we all grew to love on Pimp My Ride. He's doing it, and we're just having a moment out there, and the wind is blowing,
Right.
because we're in the Windy City. The wind is blowing, and I just know God is up to something. He's
Right.
on the move, and some things were getting ready to happen. And they did. And I almost was thinking like, okay, well, maybe I just saw me standing on the stage with Terrence and Taraji because I was going to get connected to the show. And I didn't know we were going to get called back for a second episode because they didn't tell us that up front.
Right.
Of course, at the time, he was an active character. But when his character got killed off of the show, then we had to come back and memorialize him. And so we didn't know that was going
Right.
to happen. The young lady, she played one of the baby's mamas. She was sitting on the porch with me. Would you believe that the church that I began Christian hip hop ministry in with some other ministers here in Mississippi, the pastor, his armor bearer, ended up being her brother-in-law. And this lady lives in like Rockford, Illinois. And we're sitting there and we're talking.
Oh, wow.
Now, of all of the thousands of submissions that they got, God places me on the porch with
Right.
the sister-in-law of the armor bearer for the church, for the pastor of the church where I was in the
Right.
Christian hip hop ministry. And so, like, who does that?
Wow.
And we're sitting there talking, and she was like, yeah, I got family
Right.
in Mississippi. And I was like, oh, for real? She's like, yeah. And she was like, yeah, they call him Big T. I know a Big T. Okay. And she started to tell me his wife's name and his real name. And I'm like, wait a minute now. And so we make the connection. And I'm like, girl, I'm the Christian hip hop ministry at the church. Like, that was wild to me. That was really
Wow.
wild. And she's like, what are you going to do? What if they call us back? Are you going to be able to come back? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, they've shown my face. I'm going to have to come back now. And she was like, well, when you come back, don't worry
Right.
about getting a hotel. Don't worry about, Ubering over and all that stuff. She was like, you can stay with me. We can drive the set together and all of that. And, they call us back. Don't worry
Wow.
about making any accommodations or anything. I'm opening my house up to you. they called back a few months later, and
Wow.
for sure. So had to get a flight up there. Caught my flight, got up there, and
Right.
that's what we did. And then that's when I saw we were on the stage with
That's
Terrence
awesome.
and Taraji.
Right.
So yeah, I guess somebody of little faith would have
Wow.
thought that I was just having a vision and I was just connecting to the show, but I actually saw the end and the beginning. I didn't see the other scene with the
Right.
kids in the yard and me sitting on the porch. I didn't see that scene with the exhibit. I saw
Right.
what happened last.
Wow. That's a great story. I mean, yeah. And it shows too that it's all about God's timing. You were if you would have went ahead and just did the bars and tried to do that challenge, all the rest of the stuff may not have happened.
It would not have happened. I'm a stern believer of that. Even in my music, people were trying to get me to release my music a year and a half or
Right.
two before I released it. And I kept saying no. Even though it was done with
Right.
recording. I was like, it ain't time. It's not time yet.
Right.
God hasn't released me yet to release it. And I think they understood. They respected
Right.
it. They didn't continue to try to press, but they definitely suggested it in the beginning after I was done recording. Hey, this is good. You need to go ahead and put it out. If I had done that, I would have been so out of time and none of
Right.
this stuff would have happened because everything was connected. Everything was connected.
Right. Well, cool. Yeah. And it just shows how God works. So God's timing, and now it's it was more successful than it would have been if
I'm
if
so
you would have
glad
done
I
it back
waited.
then.
Really am.
So yeah, I'm glad you waited too. So that's a great story. So you said you're working on a new album. You want to tell us a little bit about
Oh
the new album?
yeah, the new album is a totally different sound from my previous album and any music that I've ever done, and I want to say any music that Christian hip hop has ever heard, that gospel has even heard, and I say that I have nothing to say about it except for be on the lookout for it, be listening out for the release. It is coming. You are going to love it. I promise you. I promise. I know music
Cool.
artists talk about their music,
And
and
we're
we're very sensitive, and it's very near
Right.
and dear to our hearts. And we promise, people like, oh, I got a hit, I got this, and that. I promise you,
Right.
you are going to love the new sound. It's one that you've never heard before.
Wow. I can't wait to hear it.
It's a mesh of, you got hip
Can't
hop,
wait.
you got a little blues in there, you got a little cinematic production up in there, you got a little splash of everything. Because I told him, hey, I'm from Mississippi, I'm from the South. Mix it up. I need lots
Right.
of instruments. We
Right.
got blues, we have hip hop, gospel, jazz. There's so
Wow.
many genres. And then I'm an actress, and so I need some production. So when I'm
Wow.
on stage, we're cinematic,
Right.
we're dramatic, and so we were thinking about all of those elements and putting them into the music and into the sound.
Right.
And I'm very well pleased. I really am, and it's wow, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. Oh, also,
That's great. I can't wait
my
to
first
hear it.
movie where I have had
Uh-huh.
my first lead role is in post-production right now. It's called Shield by His
Right.
Grace. And so be on the lookout for the premiere date for that. We're going to premiere it, and then it'll be online for download or streaming. So be on the lookout for that. And I've started
Okay.
to receive some offers for some lead roles and some other independent films. So I'm excited about that too. And who knows? We may squeeze out another book here and there. It may not necessarily be a children's book this time, but maybe a manual or a guide or a devotional or something for women, for
Right.
young women, or just people of faith. You know what I mean?
Right. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So what I'll do is, we'll put some links with your interview, and that way, as the album comes out and the movie premieres, we could help advertise
I
for that
appreciate
as
it.
well and let people know it's out
I
there.
appreciate it.
So, well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, I had a great time getting to know you and learning more about you, and your story is just so inspiring. So thank you
Thank
so
you for
much for
having
being
me.
on
I've
the show.
enjoyed this time too.
So is there anything else you wanted to say to the audience?
You can
good?
connect with me on social media. Of course, I believe we're going to put the links up, but I'm on Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook, Twitter at official Miz Tiffany. That's Tiffamy. Miz is spelled M-I-Z. So at official Miz Tiffany, it's all together. I pretty much try to keep the same picture up if I can on all of them, so I can be easily found. I have a website as well. You can definitely connect there. Social media is
Okay.
there. It's www.miztiffany.com.
Okay, cool. All right, and we'll post all that as well, so that everybody has that information. But all right, well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. All right, guys. Like I said, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment. We definitely want to hear from you. We enjoy bringing in these these guests. I'm having a blast just getting to know all the guests that's coming in. So just let me know what you guys think. So until next time, remember, you're uniquely designed with a purpose, and always keep moving forward. See you guys later.